I mean, I like it because I mean he's the greatest of all time, so I like being compared to him. But I have so long that I have to go in my career. If you look at the longevity, the consistent greatness that he had every single year, all I can do is just try to continue to be the best me every single day that I have and have no regrets. And I actually heard Tom say this a while back, and that was his goal was just to be the best version of Tom Brady that he can be. And all that other stuff kind of happens. And if I can just continue to work the way that I work, I'll have no regrets by however my career ends.
Some really great insight today from Patrick Mahomes on Pat McAfee's show. The Chiefs went through some big-time teams on their way to this Super Bowl. We want to take a couple minutes here to talk about what's next for each of these teams as they try to catch Kansas City next season. So let's start with their wild card round opponent, the Miami Dolphins. Mina, what's the biggest offseason need in Miami right now?
Yeah, stop me if you've heard this one before. With the Miami Dolphins, it's the offensive line. Austin Jackson, their right tackle, played much better this last season. But outside of that, you've got a bunch of free agents on the interior. Connor Williams, Robert Hunt. We'll see what happens with their left tackle, Teron Armstead. It's a positional group that they continue to need to address, even though their scheme mitigates pressure to some degree and Tua's quick release as well. It is something that this front office has to address this offseason, especially because of the help that it will give them in the run game.
Yeah, Tua ranked 10th in the NFL in total QBR last year overall, but ranked 20th in QBR under pressure. It's a huge need for them, to Mina's point. Let's go to the divisional round where Kansas City took down the Bills on the road in Buffalo. So, Tim, what's the biggest need for the Bills as they try and chase down the Chiefs? Seems like the story every year next season.
Yeah, I think changing the culture and philosophy is more important than any personnel adds they could have in Buffalo. And the reason I say that is they've just kind of defaulted to, look, we've got this super talented quarterback and we're going to put a ton on him. And I'm a little surprised by it. When you think about Sean McDermott as he started as the head coach in Buffalo, they were really a defensive-led team that would try to win ugly because they didn't have much production offensively. And they had a fair amount of success with it. And then they've kind of just turned things over to Josh, where, look, they don't stay committed to the run game. They put a lot on him. And I just think it's hard to win that way because when he's not at his best, they don't look all that great. Now, they made some changes in that direction when they moved to Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator. I think they need to double down on that, especially when you consider that Kansas City, look, they were a defensive-led team that just won the Super Bowl, and yes, they have Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it may be a good time to change philosophy to that point. The Bills have 21 free agents this offseason, tied for the 8th most in the NFL. And, of course, the Chiefs went on the road again and took down the top seed in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. Many had them as a Super Bowl favorite. Let's bring everyone in on this. Graz, we'll start with you, though. When you look at free agents and cap space in Baltimore, how much work do they have to do this offseason?
Kind of a lot for a team that just had the best record in the league. They probably need something of an overhaul on the offensive line. Both of their starting guards are free agents. Both of their starting tackles are guys who aren't as young as they used to be. Could be in danger of being cap casualties. They did what they usually do at edge rusher. They brought in a couple veterans late in the game in Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy, so they should probably look for more permanent solutions there. They're going to need a running back or two. And on the defensive side, big free agents. You see there, Justin Madubuike, who had the monster year at D tackle, likely to keep him, I would think, even if that means franchising him. But that doesn't mean they can keep Patrick Queen, who's a free agent, or Geno Stone, the safety, who's a free agent. And they're going to have a lot of spots to fill on that defense.
Yeah, you know what strikes me about, the names that you mentioned on defense? This Baltimore Ravens defense is so strong up the spine. Defensive tackle, linebacker, safety. And now you've got free agents at every single one of those levels, and you probably can't keep all of them. I tend to agree with Dan there and think that they might tag Madubuike, try to bring him back. But then you probably let Patrick Queen walk. We'll see Geno Stone, what kind of contract he commands. He was outstanding this year as a third safety. But another area I wouldn't overlook is their depth at cornerback. Marlon Humphrey has been outstanding for him when he's healthy. But outside of that, it's been a bit of a rotating door, and they've leaned on free agents, guys coming later in the season. That's something that I think they would look to address potentially in the draft this year, as well as free agency if they have any money to spend.
Yeah, I think you guys make great points because they definitely beat the market with guys like Van Noy and Clowney, and that helps your defense play well. But I would just also kind of say this. A year ago at this time, we're wondering, hey, what is this offense going to look like under Todd Monken? Is Lamar Jackson actually going to develop as a passer? Will Zay Flowers, which he wasn't even on the roster this time, will he prove, will they upgrade the receiver position and get it right when they try to do it through the draft? And I think they've succeeded with Monken. I think they've succeeded developing Lamar as a passer. They've succeeded with the pick of Zay Flowers. And so I think that offensively, and oh, by the way, Isaiah likely came on in a big way when Mark Andrews was out, and you'll have both of those guys back. So I just think they're in such a different situation offensively heading into this upcoming season.
Yeah, the Ravens have 24 free agents this offseason, tied for third most in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan has coached in 4 conference championship games and 2 Super Bowls with the 49ers. He's 2-4 in those 6 games. The offense has gotten tight in the second half of those 6 games. Yards per attempt, yards per rush, and third down conversion percentage all down significantly after halftime. Kyle Shanahan spoke to the media today and was asked if he had any regrets after the Super Bowl.
Anytime you lose, every decision you made, you make a decision every play throughout that game. So when you lose, you'll go over that stuff always throughout the entire offseason, through cut-ups, through everything. But, there was nothing that I thought in the moment that I did wrong. It was everything. I was proud of that and like the thought process behind everything.
Mina, Shanahan will likely be back in these big spots in coming years. Do you trust him to come through when the season's on the line?
I do. When you look at those games he's lost, the Super Bowls, the championships you mentioned there, one of them he lost his quarterback, literally ran out of quarterbacks. And then, when you talk about him going against the Chiefs, they didn't lose those games because of Kyle Shanahan. They lost because they were going head-to-head with the best quarterback in the NFL, with a defensive play caller who I think history will look back on as one of the best in the history of the sport, and this year one of the best defenses in the league. Did he make some game management decisions? Yeah, I criticized the lack of a timeout at the end of the first half. You can quibble over the overtime decision. There were game management issues on the other side as well, but there are so many fluky things that decide a Super Bowl, whether it's the ball bouncing off of a guy's foot on a punt return or an extra point being missed, that I think it's really unfair to point entirely at the head coach when his play calling, his brilliant sequencing, his ability to put defenses in conflict is what put them in that position to begin with. So, he can always get better. Everybody can get better, especially the game management stuff. But I feel like a lot of the criticism has been overblown, and that his record is a product of the time he's playing in or the competition more than anything, Tim.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And, the ball is shaped funny, which means it bounces funny. And sometimes you need a little bit of good fortune. And sometimes that comes in the way of, not missing an extra point and not having a ball bounce off of someone on your punt return team's leg. And that's real. And so I think losing sight of that is unfair to Kyle Shanahan, especially when he and Brock Purdy, who's in his second year and was the last pick of the draft the year he came out, went on 3 go-ahead drives, 2 in the fourth quarter and once in overtime. Like that, I don't think can be overstated in terms of being able to do that against what was the second best defense in the National Football League this season. And as you said, with probably the best defensive play caller kind of in big games in this generation. So, look, it's just kind of unfortunate that who they went against. But, yeah, I have full confidence in Shanahan.
Yeah, once upon a time, there was a young offensive play caller that everybody thought was great named Andy Reid. And the knock on him was that he couldn't win the big one, that he didn't know how to manage his timeouts, that he wasn't a great game day coach, that got the team ready for the game, but then in the end, it was his mistakes that cost him. That guy turned into a 3-time Super Bowl champion. When he was the age Kyle Shanahan is now, he had not even been to a Super Bowl, let alone 2 of them, as Kyle Shanahan has. Did he have a rough game Sunday in some ways? Sure. He made some calls that I'm sure he would like to have back. He indicated as much in the news conference. But he's too good and too young to write off, and certainly there's nobody in San Francisco in terms of the people running that team that have any doubts about his ability to lead it going forward.
Well said, guys. Graz, as we do push ahead into the offseason, what are the biggest personnel questions in San Francisco?
Yeah, they don't have quite the same number of big-name free agents as Kansas City. I think the biggest one is probably Chase Young, who's only been there a couple of months. I would doubt that he's back. He probably is going to hit the market and see what's out there. Wasn't super inspirational in terms of an addition at the trade deadline this year anyway. But, they have some issues. They have some cap numbers that are going to go up pretty high. They have Brandon Ayuk, who's going to be in line for a contract extension. And we were just talking about wide receivers in the last segment. What's he going to want, and is he going to fit into a salary structure that's paying top-of-the-market money to guys like Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams and Fred Warner and Nick Bosa? So they got to sort some things out. The one thing that really helps them is their quarterback is making $985,000 next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the issue is mostly next year with some of the free agents and whether you want to get out of ahead of that, whether not just Brandon Ayuk, but Eric Armstead, who we talked about earlier, Dre Greenlaw, Travarius Ward. Some of the best players on this roster will be free agents the following season. I think for the Niners, the priority is to fix this offensive line on the interior, especially if you're moving forward with Brock Purdy, because he needs help on the inside of that offensive line.
We'll look to see if they're back in the Super Bowl once again. I wouldn't count them out, that's for sure.